afternoon, everyone. Today's Monday, May 10th, 2021. This is a special meeting to continue our fiscal year 22 budget review. Today we'll be visiting with the Sheriff's budget. Attending are Commissioners Duncan Brooks and Fillios. Officially calling this meeting to order. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, off we go. Review of the fiscal year 22 Sheriff's budget. Undersheriff Mattos, Dan, will you be presenting, or Sheriff?
Sheriff.
You can introduce, sir.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is this working or no?
I think it's working for the system, but it's not overhead. How about the box? Does it have anything to do with the box? Because ours isn't working either. I don't know that any of them are working overhead. It's all set.
All right, we're gonna keep going.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Commissioners, welcome to the hottest real estate market in the United States of America, and likely one of the fastest growing communities in the United States. I would like to tell you about a tale of two counties. One county who did a really good job in addressing growth, and one county that didn't do a very good job. And these counties aren't in California, they're not in New Jersey, they're not in New York, they're not in the Midwest. They're right here in the state of Idaho. I come to you today to partner with you in the needs of our county now and in the future, and in the immediate future. And that is my intent here, is to partner with you so we can come up with a resolution to resolve these future needs, and needs right now. I'd like to talk to you real quickly about Canyon County. Canyon County is the second largest county in the state of Idaho. Canyon County did not do a very good job preparing for an aggressive growth that they had in the mid-2000s. Ada County, also in the state of Idaho, did a great job in preparing the residents of Ada for the growth that they were going to experience. So what happened to Canyon County? Canyon County didn't prepare their sheriff's office, went into a consent decree with the judge, and I'd like to go over just a few points of this consent decree that cost Canyon County millions of dollars, and millions of dollars of oversight to a third party just to review how Canyon County was progressing through this. So, there's about 70 conditions. We're only going to hit a couple of them. Canyon County agrees to provide staffing, fire protection, fire services, training, and supervision. And this has to do with the jail, obviously. Canyon County agreed to a consent decree with the Idaho Sheriff's Association's recommendation that a jail is considered at maximum capacity when it reaches 80% of their capacity. So today, we are at 406 inmates. Our maximum capacity is 451. We're at 90% of our capacity right now. That should serve as a warning signal that we have some issues on the horizon, and I predict by the time that summer ends, we will be at 451. Part of that consent decree was when the inmate count got over 80%, that inmates had to be released within 48 hours. I don't know about you, but I don't want a Seattle, and I don't want a Los Angeles, and I don't want a New York that has a bail reduction or no reduction program and a revolving door for criminals. It just does not work. And it's not what the residents of Kootenai County expect. I would like to commend the board on its recent decision to move maintenance from the county to the sheriff's office, because we believe that that was done with great foresight, that we can resolve many of our maintenance issues within our jail, having control over our own maintenance. So I'd like to thank you very much for doing that. Part of this consent decree was that the sheriff shall maintain staffing levels in the sheriff's office. Right now, it's very difficult for us to hire some areas of the jail. We are having to pull resources that would be giving these inmates recreational time, linen exchange. We're having to put them in essential areas because we can't even hire jail staff, specifically control room operators, at any rate whatsoever. So right now we're having to put deputies in these areas, and this also should serve as a flag to the problems that's going to occur in the future. So like I said, I come here to partner with you in the needs of this community, this growing community. Ada County, there's no excuse, they did a great job. Ada County did a great job. Their commissioners did a great job in preparing that sheriff's office for this growth. Canyon County did not. And I hope that Kootenai County will do what they need to do to prepare this community for growth and to reduce the risk of a consent decree here on our sheriff's office. No other department that I'm aware of has ever had a consent decree except a law enforcement agency. So I wish you would take that in consideration when you're contemplating the next several months. That's all I have. I'm going to turn it over to Captain Miller. Stu, come on up. So one of the first agenda items, or one of the first items that we're going to talk about is a perimeter deputy around the jail. This jail is no longer a misdemeanor jail. Today's felony incarceration rate is about 75%. We are adjacent to a residential community, a business community, and a high school. And it is time for us to implement community safety plans, to forge a relationship with the businesses along Government Way and the high school, and to make the residents and the students that go to school at the high school and the businesses along Government Way feel safe and secure within now a majority felony jail population merely blocks away, and in some cases right across the street. So we are proposing 4 deputies, fully trained patrol deputies, to forge those relationships, create those community safety plans, and provide security for that now majority felony jail. Now, in addition to that, I do believe that there's an opportunity in the future from the city of Dalton Gardens to share in costs in that. They have expressed interest to have more of a presence, and this would give them an opportunity to have buy-in as their community is facing problems that they didn't face just years ago when we didn't have as much population and growth here in Kootenai County. All right, I'll turn it over to Stu Miller, Captain. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Stu Miller for the record. I'm going to give you the operations budget and just the highlights of it, but I'm available if you have questions through any part of it. I picked out kind of the highlights of the operations budget, just so you guys have an understanding of the biggest changes that I see on the horizon. The sheriff talked to you about the personnel and the car costs. As far as capital requests, the detectives, the Pierce Clegg remodel, there's a capital request for $140,000. That is an architectural fee cost, and then with the understanding of next year coming back for the remodel costs. Detective on-call pay, $10,525. That was eliminated out of last year's budget. You guys told us to bring that forward again this year. We are. This is an important piece, I think, for the detectives. Every day I have a detective that's on call for a 12-hour period. They don't get to go far from their house. They don't get to go out to family functions. They don't get to do a lot of stuff, and they're on call for a week. And then every week I have a new on-call detective. This is a minuscule piece to at least give them some thought that I'm trying to be nice to them, but they do get called out quite frequently. When they get called out, obviously the on-call pay goes away and they start getting paid overtime, but this is I call it the lockup fee, so they get to be locked up for 7 days. I pay them $2 an hour for 12 hours. That's it. I wanted to highlight on the patrol side, on non-cap requests, the patrol budget, you'll see portable radios for $98,000. If you look at last year's and the years before that, those were considered capital items, so I just wanted to highlight that that's no longer a capital item, so it's gone, so that's why my non-cap budget has gone up. In detectives, we're asking for a prox card access to the building. We need to know when people are in the building, who's coming in, who's leaving, that kind of stuff. And we don't have to issue keys out to get lost. And so this is the same on our normal building that we have. Everybody's got a prox card, and I can give access to certain areas and deny access to other areas. On the detectives side again, we're asking for $3,000 for an evidence barcode equipment. Every piece of evidence, which is usually about $500 a month that we bring in and release, this is so that we can put a quick barcode on it and we can scan it and we can know where it's at. Pretty simple. And then search and rescue, we're asking $77.80 for a prox card system there. We used to have an alarm system when the building was first built. We found out recently that it didn't go anywhere, and so we got rid of that. But we also need, with that building being the remote as it is, this is a two-stage project, so this year we're installing an alarm system monitored piece because there's CGIS equipment and stuff that's there. And then this coming year, we're hoping to install the prox card system again so we can give access, deny access. We have a lot of different groups that use that building for a lot of different things, training and such, and meetings. I'll run through the guns and ammunition real quick because that's probably the largest on the operations side. We're asking for 8 handguns, 8 shotguns, 8 rifles. Please understand that I've got hundreds of guns, and so 8 is a pretty small amount when it comes to it, but just the Glock handguns themselves, I think this year we've got about 5 retirements, and every time somebody retires, they retire with their weapon. We also have weapons that go down. We had, during this year, we had an officer-involved shooting, which tied up several of our guns for 6 to 7 months. And so this is replacement and some stock and to get to where we need to be. And then as far as ammunition, this will probably be the largest ask that I've got here. And the reason that the ammunition, number one, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but you can't find it. And when you do, it's about 3 times plus the amount that it was just 2 years ago. So we're working hard this last year. I've still got purchase orders out from this year that we ordered late last year that our vendor still hasn't been able to fulfill yet. So hopefully with this, we can, when we do find a vendor that has some stock, we can get it and we can keep it. Right now my stock is pretty low. And as you know, we have required training that we have to go through to keep our certifications. Without that ammunition, it's going to be rather difficult to do. And then finally, on the rec safety side, you'll see that there's it says 86 or 60 66,000 more from last year. Don't get too nervous about that. That's just the offset of the RBS grant. So every year we get the RBS grant, so it looks like it's increased in our budget. But the way the auditor's office was doing it this year, it doesn't really show until the next year comes up. So that's the grant match from our RBS grant. Any questions from you guys?
Can you just expand a little bit? All I have is Rec Safety River Patrol. That's all that's on my list.
Well, essentially, I just wanted to hit the rec safety side of it. As you know, we're allocating some funds this year. You guys allocated some funds for us so that we can provide post falls and some KCSO deputies to do some heavy emphasis on the rivers. We also, the sheriff had a community town hall with a lot of the river residents, and one of the requests that they had was a higher level enforcement. And so last year we did a lot of education. This year we're not doing a lot of education. We'll do a lot of education, but we're going to be focused on if you violate the law, you'll probably get a ticket.
Sure.
And so.
So does this include the potential split with the Lakeland SRF?
No, so we brought that back to the Lakeland folks, and they said it was outside of their budget. So when we came to you and when I came to you and asked you the 60-40 split, they said they couldn't do it. So it wasn't in their budget, unfortunately. And as you know, we struggle every year on the rec safety side to get enough qualified deputies to perform lake duties. But you also heard from the sheriff where our population is not doing anything but going up. I talked to several boat companies this year. There's no used or new boat to be found. Why? Because they bought them. So I anticipate this is going to be one of the busiest years I think we've ever had.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Bill?
Questions?
Yeah, I do. Total ammo, how does
Yes.
that, do you know how that compares to last year?
Well, it's, I want to say about triple from what we had requested last year. It went up, if I remember right, on the patrol side, it was an additional 98,000.
So this year's ask plus last year's is,
And again, you take a look at what we've not been able to buy. I'm reaching out to a couple different ammunition vendors now, and I've identified some on some state contracts that we're going to go try to work with as well. But again, ammunition prices 3 to 5 times higher this year than they were in the last 2 years. I recently went to one of the stores to buy ammunition, couldn't find any, and what I did find, I bought some ammunition, and it cost me a little more than double of what I would paid 2 years ago for.
Okay.
So scarcity plus cost, I think people is driving it.
In terms of volume, are you purchasing also higher volume?
Right now we can't find. I mean, I've got purchase orders that are outstanding right now, and so my thought is, or my hope is that we can actually get some stock, because right now I don't have any. Because the last year and a half we've not been able to find enough ammunition, and when we do, we end up using it pretty quickly.
Okay. Any other questions?
May I speak on?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Captain Miller. Thanks, Stu.
Stu, I was gone last week, so I kind of didn't get fully brought in on where we're at with that Lakeland. So we're $10,000 apart from having a.
Yeah, roughly. And Undersheriff actually went back at him to negotiate some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to, reading this correctly, for a mere $10,000, we can have a deputy on site full-time.
Guys, you need to get onto the mics, because people can't. Sheriff, do you want to sit?
and
Okay,
who's
just-
ever on the phone, can you just mute yourself until you're ready to talk? Thank you.
As far as Lakeland School District, are they closed on this I would just ask the commissioners to consider that during this budget process. I think that the gains far outweigh the investment here. The dividends will far pay. For mere $10,000, we can have a presence. As you know, we did have a shooting recently at a school here in Idaho. To me, it's a no-brainer. So I wish that you would consider that during your budget process to see if we can come up with $10,000 somewhere.
And then for the other schools that we also do 70-30 split, would we turn them into 60-40 as well?
No, they're in a better position than this particular school, apparently. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yep, come forward.
And this is on the heels of recent news this morning on gas prices. There's been a cyber attack on one pipeline right now, and what my research has told me is that that's going to, at least that's what they're saying, that could become more common. Gas prices, as everybody knows, are always volatile, but that's, you got to have gas in the police cars. So when we produce the numbers, what do we come up with, Andy, for gas? What's our, when they're looking, I just got to say that there's a likelihood that may need to be looked at again in light of recent events. And then the second thing is about the ammo. I just want to be clear in saying that there's no fluff in that. And I like to shoot, and I can tell you that I buy ammo a lot. And a year ago, I was paying about $11 a box, maybe a little bit before a year ago, because the pandemic kind of messed things up too. But call it, about $11 a box for these 9mm that we carry for the practice ammo that we use.
50 to a box.
50 round box. Right now, I just ordered some for myself, and these are reloaded cartridges. And I got a good deal at $29 a box. And so, this is going to be something we have to train. It's a high liability thing. And this is something that we're just not positioned to cut back on if we can at all avoid it. So I just want to make those 2 points. Gas and ammo are volatile right now, and those are 2 things that we just have to have.
Thank you, Dan. So, Captain John Holecek, welcome. This will be about the jail and Captain Andy Deak.
It will. We're splitting this up. So
Okay.
I'll start. We're asking for the control room operator and booking clerk were both frozen last year to be able to cover the pay raises. We'd like to have those positions thawed. They're both necessary. The control room operator is $58,357 loaded, and the booking clerk is $55,827.
In addition to that, we're also asking for a new position of a classification deputy. It would be an entry-level deputy. And the reason for that is we've had the same staffing in our classification office for nearly 20 years. Our population has gone up at least 25% that I'm aware of in that last 20 years. We had the first expansion that we were around 325 beds, and we're now at approaching 420, 450. The need is there to have at least 17 hours a day staffing in that office, and 3 full-time people are not covering those hours all week long. And we do have a lot of inmate movement within the jail. With the higher classification of felon being in there as well, it does create a need for more space to move people around. So, budget.
Your question on the 8. Well, actually, on the jail population. What was the figure that was given earlier? Was it
406.
406, okay. How many of those are destined for state?
We got 40, I believe, right now, today, snapshot.
And when would they go?
It's generally 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
State picking them up on a regular
That number
basis.
stays and goes up, and then they take some and it resets and comes back and forth. We average about 25 to 30.
But are they picking them up on a regular schedule, or do we,
They come every Thursday roughly. We don't
Okay.
give out that information.
because I know for a while it was hard getting them up here,
Thursdays,
yeah.
Tuesdays, yeah, it moves around.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just our B budget, we just went through some of the highlights. It went up by 511,590 this year, which is significant. So we just pulled out about 495,000 of that, just to kind of give you an idea of where the major increases were in that, so you have an idea where we're coming from.
So a majority of that is coming out of our contracted medical services. Line item 8222. Since the inception of our medical contract, we have been lumping all of our hospital and medications into that line item. It is not contracted medical services. As you're familiar, in past years, we've had a cap overage of 100,000 assigned to that. An actual cost in there, just last year, we were 800,000 paid out to Kootenai Medical Center. About 40 to 50,000 was in high dollar medications, HIV drugs, hepatitis medications. What I'm asking for is the establishment of the actual line items that are in the county code for that cost center, to have a $400,000 line item 8221 for our, this would be out of network or hospitalizations that occur, and then also for 8220, which is that line item for medications. The net increase to our overall budget is $350,000 for FY22 for that. But it truly shows where that money is going to, rather than lumping it all under contracted medical services, because they don't cover those hospitalizations and high dollar drugs. They never have.
Do you know if HB 316 that was passed is going to help the medical situation?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Sorry.
Does everyone know what I guess for everyone's benefit, HB 316, do you want to just talk quick?
It just has to do with police holds. The county's not going to be responsible for those anymore, and some other things. So we're going to
Not
get
gonna affect
updated on the
us much
20th.
on that. Yeah,
Okay.
when we end up paying the hospitalizations, it's either, you have overdoses, things like that, people that are ingesting drugs before they come into custody, and it's also for those that have health conditions while they're in custody. In recent years, it's been heart conditions and pregnancies that's driven the cost tremendously high.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next part of our B budget, ammunition and gun supplies. We've already covered that, but it's $14,020 of our budget. Was an increase for 9mm. Next part, non-capital. Stu spoke to the radios. The jail has not ordered any of the new radios. The ones we have now, we've had in service for about 12 years. They're no longer serviced by Motorola, and we've been taking the hand-me-downs from patrol as they switch those. Those are starting to dry up, so we're gonna have to start ordering approximately 10 per year. So 59,990 not up. That increase is non-cap from those radios, and then 6,630 is for breathing apparatus for our control room operators to use to evacuate the building in case of a fire.
Okay.
The water sewer garbage line item, 8206, $70,000 increase in this line item. Increased significantly due to the installation of a new water softening system by maintenance, and with this year we are already spent on our line item this year. And when I prepared this, it was at 60%. Tom Reed might be able to speak to that a little bit, but looks like there's a faulty part in there that they have discovered. We don't think that that's the only contributor to that. The water softening system does actually dump into the sewer water as it's processing it, but it's money that we didn't plan on initially when that system was installed. It's about 2 years old.
Okay.
That's all our B budget items. For C budget, one system we're asking for is called the Core Track Inmate Management System. That's $49,396. Almost 30 years I've been there, we've been doing handwritten logs. We're still doing it. It's time to move into the current century. This is an electronic system, tracks inmate classification, lend exchange, service cards, what our staff are doing. It just gives us a lot of tracking. It's a system that iCrimp, our insurance provider, is so back so much that they're willing to pay for half of it, although their budget is not finalized for the upcoming fiscal year. We've got a pretty firm commitment to them giving us approximately half the cost, but that's not finalized. But at this point, it would be $49,396 with an ongoing maintenance cost of $6,340 a year, with most likely at least $22,000 of that being reimbursed by iCrimp, possibly more.
And the last couple items on our capital request is, one is an outside freezer for our jail kitchen. The current freezers that we've had there is about 20 years old. It was donated to us by the school district. It has reached end of life. This should have been replaced during the jail expansion. It was part of the initial project design, and for some reason it didn't get done during that 2018 expansion. And the last item is a fairly expensive steam kettle. It's a tilting electric steam kettle that's in our kitchen. It's for large volumes of soup and porridge or whatever else we serve. $25,000 for that. And that is one of two items. We did replace one of those 2 years ago. Both of them were installed at the same time back in 2001. Any questions?
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, so we're moving on to services with Captain Kevin Smart. Sure, come right up, Dan.
And the sheriff may want to speak to this as well, but you're going to see that there's some talk in Captain Smart's presentation about thawing some frozen positions, and I'm going to let him get into the nuts and bolts of that, but I just kind of want to preface this by saying that it's no secret that the housing market here, the sheriff's already spoke to it, has gone sky high. I think the median price I'm hearing is $488,000. I think Creme Twos is about to do an entire expose this week on what's going on here. But the fallout for that is hiring people, and this is no news for you guys, I know. But I know that throughout the county, there's a lot of difficulty right now in getting people to come to work for the county because of the wages. Some of it's got to do with I think some of the stimulus money that's still out there. Maybe people don't want to come back to work. But we're facing a very unique situation right now, and that situation is we have got to provide public safety, and there's two components that to what I want to say to you that are critical. One is retention, and the other one's recruitment. And we're having people withdraw at record levels now, according to Marcia, Heglie, who watches that. So we have that issue. We have some strategies going forward about how we're going to maybe try to attack that problem. But then the other one is recruitment. And with that, I just think that we have to look at ways to incentivize the people that work here now to stay, because having fully trained people that are functional and ready to go, it's just going to start becoming more and more difficult. Even laterals that one time wanted to come here from other places are backing away because they can't afford the housing. So I don't know, Sheriff, if you want to speak to that anymore.
I won't belabor the point, but we're at critical mass in our dispatch, period. We have several vacancies, and we are going to have to hire from our existing, it appears we're going to have to hire from our existing population here in Kootenai County. Walmart now hires at $16 an hour. Big sign right out in front. So we need to do what we need to do for public safety and prioritize public safety over any other department in this county, like other municipalities have chosen to do or have been forced to do based on consent decrees.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Commissioners, I'm not sure if my thunder was all stolen or if I still have some left to give you. Like both the Undersheriff and Sheriff said, the majority of my ask for my sections are lingering around the 911 center. You know, it's, again, been mentioned multiple times. Housing, we're continuing to be inundated with transfers from other states. And so what we have to do to combat that is we're going to need additional staff in our 911 center. The call volume is going to continue to grow, and we have to be able to combat that and be prepared. Those calls have to be processed in order to get them in the system properly, to send the emergency services units that are necessary to get there. It's a unique setting there. We don't have the ability like other sections to be able to pen calls for another day, pen tasks for another day. We have to have minimum staffing there every day. And, you know, when vacations and sick leave events pop up, that requires us to bring in additional staff to fill that hole. We can't get by with a day without somebody manning that station. What we're looking at this year is, again, we're in a different spot than we were a couple months when we put this together. A couple months ago, we had 3 or 4 still in backgrounds that we were hoping to bring on board. And at that time, we were looking for a better situation to be able to say, hey, let's look at bringing on a couple more supervisors that are needed, as well as unfreezing those 3 ECO positions. Those have not come to fruition. So what we'd like to do with those supervisor positions is ask that you continue to freeze the current supervisor position that's on the books. I would also ask that you go ahead and adopt the new ask of the supervisor position that we did for this year, but also leave it frozen. Those positions will be needed in our future. They cannot be done without as we move forward, but at this time we need to focus a little bit more on our line level situation in order to beef up our numbers before we bring those supervisors back into play in the future. The 3 ECO positions that are currently frozen, we would like to see you thaw those positions for this year. However, we're going to ask that those be moved to mid-year requests. That will allow us to continue to fill the current vacancies and train those up and come back around in a mid-year request to hopefully be in a position to be able to hire and fill these 3 positions. However, what we'd like to do with some of that funding that would be a full year's ask is to reallocate those into terms of some one-time bonuses for our current staff, as well as some recruitment bonuses. What we're looking at is a $2,500 bonus for the 23 ECO and supervisor staff that we currently have on board, and a $1,250 bonus for our 2 call taker positions. In addition to that, we would like to implement a $1,500 recruiting bonus, hiring bonus, if you will, for the 7 vacancies that we anticipate, the 4 that we would currently have and the 3 that we would thaw for the mid-year RAS. Now those retention and hiring bonuses would be above and beyond what we're going to ask for our other recruitment line items as well. So just don't get those confused. This would be above and beyond that. Currently, Spokane has an ad about $15,000 they're doing for hiring bonuses. Portland, for their dispatch center, has a $10,000 hiring dollar bonus for the dispatch center itself. So $1,500 is a pretty small ask at this time for us trying to capture some of those people as well. Again, this is staff that has been, these bonuses are warrants. This is staff that has been for almost a decade working 6 days a week. Family time has been limited. The mental and physical stressors that they've been dealing with for these past 10 years with these staffing woes. And so that's what we would ask you to really take into consideration to approve those one-time bonuses at this point.
That comes right out of the salary savings, correct?
Well, it's essentially, we want to just highlight, it's not an additional funding ask, it's just reallocating instead of full year of the 3 ECO positions, it would be a mid-year hiring. We would reallocate those other funds to put back into the bonus pool for us.
Okay.
Moving on quickly to the 911 enhanced request for this year. We have 9 consolettes that need to be replaced. They're end of life. We replaced 9 a year ago that were also in the same boat. This is just a follow-up to continue to get the other 9 up to snuff where we need to be. And then the other point that we're going to bring in is we're looking at a program called Edge Availability. As you may know, we're on a state backbone system, which facilitates the radio communications all the way down to Meridian. Meridian is the location that houses the main core. However, about 15 to 20 times throughout the year, weather-related activities and whatnot, there's disruptions along that line. And that affects us in the radio communications between our dispatch center and all of the entities we serve. Many times we have to go into some backup modes, some other backup radio channels. It's very dysfunctional. This system here, it's two parts. The first part would help alleviate that immediately. It would give us some backup and redundancy to the point where when those events occur, the dispatch center and the units in the field would not even notice. It would be seamless, and they wouldn't notice that we're having these site trunking issues with the state system. The other part that this does is our future kind of hinges upon this as well, for a plan to be simulcast features in the future. It opens up more lines for us to have communications along those same lines, and instead of 7 units fighting over the radio channels, it would allow us 14 units to be able to be on there so we don't miss any critical information that comes across. That is the 911 enhanced, and don't forget that is also the dedicated funds budget. So.
Is there a percentage that's general fund, or are those all 100%?
Those are all 100% from the 911 enhanced.
Okay. So on that system, how many other agencies use that system?
The state system?
No, the
Edge
Edgeville.
availability. Colin? Any other systems using that right now? Agencies?
How many in Kootenai County would use it implemented or currently use it?
No, just across the state. We can't be the only ones that are directly,
Is anybody using
far
Edge
away.
that you know?
No one's using Edge availability today, because the state system can't support it until we upgrade to the next version, which is happening this month. So it's a new feature available to us.
Okay.
Just some other small notes for my additional sections that I have. The other sections I have minimal cost increases. Many of them were hinging upon, small office furniture needs and those kinds of things. Any other questions?
Questions? Thank you, Captain Smart. Who's up next? Tiffany. Tiffany Westbrook, Director of Office of Emergency Management. Welcome.
Hello. So mine should be pretty quick for you guys. All the increases to our budget have to do with the utility costs for the new facility. The Avista electric and gas, we have a budgeted $27,000. We will pay 85% of that. The airport picks up the remaining 15%, as our building and their building is currently on the same meter. The Hayden Irrigation District, that's our water and sewer. We have an ask. Right now we have $21.95 budgeted. We could actually lower that, and we probably will, just because all of this is new data. So as we're getting the data in, we're trying to make the budget to reflect those. And then the last one is the septic tank pumping. So all of these are pretty self-explanatory, have to do with the cost for the facility. Any questions?
Does your normal grants pick up any of this?
So these costs are EMPG eligible, but the county still has the obligation to match that at 50%, but they are eligible EMPG asks.
Okay, so we would be matching 50% of what's indicated here? Okay, thank you.
How are you getting along on your new house?
We love our new facility, and we're super grateful for it. It is an awesome place to be, and we could not be happier.
Thank you, Tiffany. Yeah, please, Dan.
You just heard a $70,000 increase at the jail, and you've heard the Tiffany speak to the utilities out at the new OEM building. And I broached this with Dena already, but I would just like to put in the commissioner's mind, it would be probably much better for everybody involved that the commissioners just paid the utilities up front. I mean, it's my understanding that there's other entities, certainly those that are within the purview of the board, the BOCC pays their utility bills. Other buildings in the county, that the county is responsible for, they pay their utility bills. And I just would like to propose that we just give the utilities to you guys and let you pay them. I mean, we got to pay them one way or the other. And speaking with Dena, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it does seem to be much simpler that way, and I don't know if you want to speak to it.
I just am against it because I think that there are some things that we can do to conserve utilities, and I think putting it down to a more local level is better, because we're not going to be able to conserve, everybody else's utilities. So that's just the reason why I haven't been agreeable to that.
We wouldn't be able to control the use or the conservation piece of it, yeah.
So I guess in fairness, I would just ask that what other departments pay their own utilities outside the board? Do you have other departments that are?
I don't know. Maybe Dena can answer
I'll let
that.
Dena, go ahead, Dena.
So I would just say that one of the schedules that are in your binder, I think it's near the back, I pulled all the utility bills with all the departments and just made some recommendations, maybe paying the general fund related in the general fund, pay the justice fund related in the justice fund. Anyway, there's some flavors there. Have a look. It would be, from a bookkeeping perspective, it would be much simpler and more straightforward.
If we paid it.
Well, if the general fund and the justice fund paid it.
Okay,
Just,
okay.
if we consolidated, it would be easier for us to process as well. So something to consider, but the
So
data's
basically-
there.
So what you're saying is, in essence, right now, pretty much everybody's paying their own.
It's all over the place.
all
There
over.
isn't any real rational, organized way that we're doing it. So it's something that you may want to explore.
Kind of like cell phones. Is there any known way that you know of to conserve energy for an entity like a sheriff's office?
I don't know for a sheriff's office, but I know in the past, I think Sean got some grant money, or there was a program where we replaced light bulbs with high-efficiency light bulbs. I know that there are a few asks for some replacements for heaters and HVAC systems and that kind of stuff. And as we modernize, I know we have quite a few, and I'm sure Tom can speak to this, we have quite a few HVAC systems that are end of life, and those old systems are a lot less efficient than the new.
We did do a big project years ago with the LEDs, swapping everything over.
Okay.
So the fact that some of them,
Did it quit?
timing. Just me, awesome. So part of them are restricted funds, part of them are for grant funding, and then consolidating, that won't be an issue?
Well, for the restricted ones, we wouldn't want to consolidate. If it's dedicated funds, those would stay. But there are probably areas where you could consolidate if it's all tax funded. So, anyway, something to
Okay,
consider.
that's a good thought. All right, thank you. Okay, Tom Reed. Maintenance at our sheriff's facilities.
You have to excuse my voice, allergies are killing my throat, so. We'll start with the A budget. I'm requesting thawing a position we originally got, or created with the expansion. And I've asked for it for the last 3 years, and I'm just asking for it again. With the addition of OEM and some other things, it's really taxing on our staff, which leads into, I'm requesting some bonuses for this year for the SO maintenance staff. We've kind of led the charge with the technology and the skills that we have. And I'm just asking that we recognize the staff for that. Any questions on that?
What's that amount, Tom?
3,000 total, which is about 500 per
Okay.
employee. B budget, we've got an increase of about 14%. That's to allocate for a lot of the services that have increased over the last year. Materials have skyrocketed, and then some of the construction costs. Plumbing, carpentry, flooring, that kind of stuff. Non-cap, access ladder for the SO roof. We currently use a lift for that. There's no access to the roof to get to the HVAC or to maintain the the flat roof. So we're asking for that. Capital request, there's some 5-year plan stuff that Building and Grounds has taken on. And so some of that stuff is listed in the short abbreviated things in the notebook, but we can go over those. The HVAC at the jail, which is approximately $130,000, rooftop units and heat pumps. The generator replacement, we tried doing a grant, but that didn't work, so I'm putting that in the budget at about $88,325, I believe. Mini split at the PCB, which is the old Work Release Center. We converted some lockers into offices, and the heating's not and cooling's not adequate.
Tom, let me stop you for a moment. Generator replacement, where's that?
That's the jail. It runs the SO campus.
Okay.
It's original, 86. We've had it rebuilt several times, and it's time to replace it.
Okay. Keep going.
The skid steer, we've asked for that a couple years. That's going to replace our forklift, which has solid tires, and we've got a lot of gravel areas we can't access. And also help with snow removal. Because our campus is so tight and it's 24/7, that'll definitely help with snow removal. We currently have a DIY plasma CNC, and I'd like to replace it with a commercial. It's failing, and we use that a lot on projects inside the jail.
What's a CNC?
It's a plasma cutter, basically cuts metal into shapes.
Okay.
So, and I believe that's about it.
Questions for Tom?
The one, the cutter we have is working.
Yes.
It's just showing its
a
age.
DIY, yeah, it's showing its age.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Administration. Marcia, Heglie, come on up, Marcia.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We have two main things that we'd like to bring up that are additions to our administration budget this year. One of them, and I know it's a large ask, but it's for executive time, which is a timekeeping and scheduling system. It does our timesheets and the scheduling for all of our departments within the facility. We are currently using antiquated systems. I've been with the Sheriff's Office for over 18 years now, and we are still using the same timesheets that we were when I started, probably even when the Undersheriff started.
We've been doing it the same way for close to 30 years, but just on that note, one of the...
Dan, you want to come up to a mic, please?
I told her I was going to back her up on this. I know it's a lot of money, but first of all, what we do, I just don't really know who else other than in Kootenai County. I know we do it manually in Kootenai County, but we did a little checking. For instance, at Kootenai Health, they do everything just through a swipe of a Prox card. Even at Super One Foods, Stu Miller's daughter works there, and she can look her schedule up. She does everything through her cell phone relative to knowing how many hours she worked. In Kootenai County, again, I'm going to go back to where we started. We've been doing it this way for 30 years, and I've worked a couple other places in my career before I got here. I've been here for quite a while. But one of the things I always scratch my head about, and the commissioners I think have scratched their heads about, is it's got to do with shift differential. And you know what? The bottom line is, we've talked, why don't we let shift differential be shift differential? If you work day shift, you don't get anything. If you work swing shift, you get some, and if you work graveyards, you get the bigger part of that pot. That's the way it's been. They've been doing that in the mines in the 1800s, but I'm told that it's too complicated for us to do it in Kootenai County. And there's going to come a point that I think we do need to move ahead, and I think that, I know that we've talked to Grant Kinsey about this. There's some issues about the potential for us maybe going away from New World and maybe looking for another. And so, what I'm really trying to do here is put this in the minds of the commissioners that if you go to a different software program, to include that as a component, because I'm sure we're not the only ones that have to deal with really extensive payroll. Probably we're the biggest one, and in particular when it comes to doing the shift differential. I'd like to see us actually do shift differential the way it's supposed to be. And that potentially could save some money depending on how you did it. But this is all contingent on being able to get the times that we live in, getting the software and the equipment to do it right. I know $100,000 is a lot of money. I know you might be glazing over right about now about what I'm talking about, but it's time to start the conversation. Sheriff?
Aren't all Kootenai County departments on the same payroll system?
Yes, they are. And right now, just in the quick little survey I've done with some of the other departments, we have at least 4 different versions of timesheets being done here at Kootenai County, so there's really no consistency to the way they're being done. Now granted, we are a little bit different because we do have the shift differential, we do have special duty pays, we do have some things that are a little uncommon compared to some of the other departments within the county. So that is the big cost is the first year, and then it does have a reoccurring, just a little over $10,000, almost $11,000 each year for the renewal on it.
Is there a lot of training involved in?
There will be some training, but that's built in, their training to come in is built in these fees that's on the proposal here.
I would just ask Dena, if you don't mind, could you opine, or if, I know a lot of potentially your office as well. Do you see issues with how we do payroll, or maybe maybe something that's...
And this system does communicate with Tyler Technologies with our current payroll system as well, so that saves some time there as well.
Okay.
So I'll
Go ahead,
just
Dena.
share the sentiment that doing paper timesheets in the year 2021 is pretty crazy, and that you do have a very complex timekeeping issue. I know from the payroll side, it would be great to have something that's consistent and automated. I personally have not looked at ExecuTime. Is it a third party or is it part of Tyler?
It's part of Tyler.
Okay, okay. So whether we're gonna stay with Tyler or not, we're probably gonna be with Tyler for a while because a new ERP system is going to be a huge project, and I think we have a few more in front of us before that happens.
Okay.
I would be curious to know what payroll thinks of ExecuTime and what would be the additional cost to just put the entire county on ExecuTime.
We did have a demo that Carrie Cole from IT set up, and Grace, I do believe, was part of that demo, so
Okay,
she should be somewhat knowledgeable about that.
okay, great. Yeah, I'd be interested to see what the additional cost would be to put everyone on. But
Okay.
it is an issue, and it is a very manual process.
Okay. Thank you, Dena.
Okay, on to recruiting. Well, I think we've kind of already started down this path with a couple different people here. But we are looking to ask for some relocation bonuses. And again, I'm going to kind of echo what Captain Smart said. When we started looking at putting our budgets together this year, things were a little bit different even 8 weeks ago than they are today. We are asking for some promotional some monies to buy promotional things for recruiting. We are looking for some relocation bonuses for our control room operators and our emergency communications officers to the tune of $12,500. That would be 5 bonuses roughly at $2,500, which is not near enough for what our current needs are. And then also job fair registration fees of $2,000. As you guys know, recruiting is going to take a lot of outside the box thinking at this point because we are just not receiving the applications currently that we did even a year ago during COVID. The numbers have just tanked, and there's really no rhyme or reason other than we can pinpoint maybe our housing market, people not wanting to get back to work, people wanting to work from home instead. They just aren't wanting to get back out into the workforce. And I know that the sheriff's office isn't the only one affected by this. This is a county-wide problem that we need to address. But then again, we do have public safety issues here. You can't just pick somebody from one department and throw them over to dispatch console and think that they can dispatch out for emergency calls. So it is a problem that we need to be addressing, and honestly, I think that these asks are a little on the low side for what the current problems that we're facing are. It's a good place to start.
Thank you, Marcia. Any questions? Appreciate it. Okay, then. Sheriff, you have any final words for us?
I actually have other questions.
Oh, go ahead. Go right ahead. Yeah, use that.
I'm looking in, and I don't see the bonuses on my, my A sheet. And, okay, this is Fridays. It is Fridays, so we can powwow after that. But the other thing I don't see is special duty pay for backcountry. Is that being considered at all?
It's not in there.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, it just seems to me that
That's true. You didn't give us enough
we
here
should,
at the end.
well, I mean, if we're looking at treating everybody the same, isn't that only one of the departments that doesn't receive special duty pay?
Yeah, well, from the dollar an hour perspective, yes. There's others that want it as well. The range team wants it.
Is the range team full-time?
No.
Okay.
But you can make an argument for that. The sonar team wants it, they're not full-time. There's others. Rec safety would probably be at the top of that list, but because of not wanting to get into the issue of either we're gonna give it to everybody and try to be fair, or just give it to one and make somebody else mad. We didn't approach it that way, but frankly, we didn't think we were gonna have a chance to get it, but if you won't consider it, you have to.
Well, I just see that there's the FTOs, jail training officers, record training, communications training, terminal agency coordinator, SWAT, crisis negotiation, K-9, dive team, traffic, detention, radio programmer, detectives. So on that list, I just didn't see backcountry, so.
There is a differentiation there, because backcountry is a full-time assignment, but many of those others are part-time assignments.
Dan, can you come up to the mic, please? It's okay.
There is a difference, because rec safety is an assignment, that's a full-time job, that's what they do. SWAT team, dive team, the others that you mentioned, they're not full-time jobs. They're getting special duty pay, but they're not in a full-time assignment like rec safety. I don't know if you want to add to that, Stu, or?
Well, then my question is, are they only getting that extra pay when they're in that position?
No, that's a full-time, they get it at $1 an hour added to their paycheck, or to their hourly wage.
So do backcountry make more money than the rest of these guys?
No.
Okay.
Thank you, Dan. Any other questions? Bill, anything?
Yeah, I just, from the beginning, this year, last year, and the year before, I think it's most important that we recognize the people who work for Kootenai County, whether they're in the sheriff's office or anyplace else, are kind of the backbone of what we do, the service that we do. And that's where the money needs to be put first, and the raises given, and the COLA given, and then we work on everything else. And in my mind, at this point and always, new programs are last. Failing equipment is right up there. But we have to take care of the people we have, because we can have all the equipment and all the new programs, and if we don't have the people, and that includes retention and attracting people. I just think we ought to set up a full-time office in Seattle, saying we are not defunding the police. We're just going to cut their budget quite a bit.
I would agree with you. I think that what we are doing, we have put protocols in place to make sure that we retain employees. When there's an employee that has a issue, With the hospitalization, we put in protocols in place to make sure we reach out to that employee, make sure what the needs of that employee are. I agree with you 100%. Unfortunately, the lack of strategic planning from boards that have come before you and the narrow-minded mindset of them in planning for this growth in this community was, quite frankly, probably an F.
Do you have any reason to believe that's going to improve in the future?
Well, I'm always hopeful that the present board will have the vision to prepare this county for the growth, absolutely. But we have some significant issues facing public safety here in Kootenai County on the horizon, so
Anytime we have to cut anything, I would rather the people in the office or the department do the cutting, not the commissioners, especially when it comes to something technical like IT or very complex like law enforcement. So I'm loath to start chopping things away. And we've had pretty good luck in the past doing that, working together, saying, where can we cut this? Tell us. Instead of, I'm sorry, that's where we're cutting it. And I'm always afraid to do that, but sometimes you have to. This year's going to be horrible. Horrible. It's going to be terrible. We can't take foregone if we want to, a little bit. What, $500,000, Chris?
What's that with the
Foregone?
Yeah, I think it's like, what is it, 1%? So it would be 1% of our taxable budget.
Yeah.
That'd be about $500,000, yeah.
Well, it's just that we're facing, what?
Yes.
July 1 would be the, yes, that would be effective date, yes.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what, I don't want to say keeps me up at night, but that's what I'm worried about.
so we have till July the 1st, is that what you're saying, Dan?
Yeah, Commissioner Brooks, you brought up the F word, and I already know where everybody stands on it, foregone taxes. Sheriff, did I? I'm sorry. But we gotta talk about it, and that's why we asked about July 1st. If there, the $10 million foregone balance, at least when people ask me about it, it represents dollars that could have been taxed that weren't. It's just that simple. Is it, Dena?
That's true.
Well, I am happy that my taxes aren't sky high, and I think the county's done one hell of a good job of keeping them down. And I don't think we need, it'd be nice for the employees to have $10 million worth of raises go their way, or $10 million available to the budget to address capital requests and address pay raises. But honestly, I don't think $10 million I don't think the taxpayers deserve to have their taxes jacked up $10 million. But I do think that a portion of that should be considered from the standpoint that it's dollars that should have been taxed, that if we don't get our hands on it now, we're never going to be able to catch up. And if you even look at half of that, and I don't know what the dollar amount is now per $100,000 or for a $300,000 house, but there is an issue with timeliness in this. Because if we're, I know House Bill 389 saying that we're going to get held to 90% of the growth and 80% of the returning URDs, and we got that cap on the foregone balance, which, out of those three things, the one that concerns me the most, and I think should concern county government the most, is that cap on foregone, because if we don't use it now, we're not going to catch up. And I don't know that the county can tax their way in 1 year into a way to provide equitable pay for the employees and give the incentive for them to stay. I don't want to pay any more taxes. Nobody doesn't. I don't think we need to take $10 million, but I just have to say that it has to be considered before July 1st if you're going to do it, or forever hold our peace.
I got to add that things have changed from when some people have committed to not taking foregone taxes. Some things have changed. And the housing market and the employment market here in Kootenai County has forced that change. And I'm asking you to consider public safety as a priority and do what needs to be done to fund public safety. It's at a we're at a very critical point. Our patrol deputies, we're just not clearing calls in 15, 20 minutes anymore. We are on several calls for service every day that require 2, 3 hour, 4 hour response, not only response times, but handling time. And it's not the Kootenai County of 40,000 people anymore. I'm going to have a conversation with the city here in Kootenai County about the calls for service and the amount of service that they receive. And that's going to become very, very shortly. So I am asking you to consider what we've talked about here today, and this is my first budget process. I know it'll end happy for everybody.
It always does. At least it has, I think, with this board. For everyone's benefit, Dena, can you comment on your understanding of 389? At least from what we know today?
And the governor hasn't signed that yet.
It's still on the governor's desk to sign. I have not read it in detail. It's wavered back and forth between how much we can take for taxes, URDs, new growth, those elements, and then, of course, foregone and any flavor of that. Bottom line is we're going to be curtailed in the amount of funding we have available to run our county. So depending upon what gets signed, we'll be diving into that deeply. And we're still waiting to get our new growth number. So once we have that, we'll have a better idea of what kind of working capital we have, what opportunities we have for funding these needs.
So when they talk about the 8% cap, and we were talking about this on Friday, does that apply to the taxable part of the budget or the entire budget?
I don't know. I'm
that's
assuming it's taxes. I'm assuming it's property tax because this is property tax focused. I don't think that there's any limit as long as there's no statutory limitation on charging fees, except that they can't exceed what it costs us to provide the service
Right.
that the fee is being charged for.
So then the same holds true, I imagine, in your response with regard to, I think there was a limit on using something like 1% of foregone?
Yeah.
And we weren't sure if that was 1% of the 50 mil, which is our taxable revenue, or 1% of the total budget, which is,
I honestly,
we don't know.
I haven't read
Okay.
through because it's not final yet and it keeps changing. But once it's finalized, we'll know what we're dealing with. But, I feel the sentiment of the sheriff's office because once this goes into effect, whatever it is, our ability to use foregone is going to be limited. And even if we are able to use it, say for a capital project, once we use it once, it's gone. We don't add that to our tax base anymore, which is, when we put that money away for foregone, we were under the impression, like Canyon County did when they had to expand their jail, they had to take their foregone in order to do it because the people wouldn't vote a tax increase or a bond, so they had to expand their jail using foregone. If we wanted to build a building using foregone, we're not going to be able to do that unless we were to do something before July 1st.
July 1st.
And it's a lot of money, but like the sheriff said, once we lose our ability to use that, we're forever behind. So, big stuff to consider.
What's the status of the $32 million that has been allocated to Kootenai?
I've gotten no word on that, and there's still no direction from the U.S. Treasury on how it can be used. It's been completely silent.
Thank you, Dena. I mean, to put it in perspective, if the so-called 8% cap that they're referring to applies to our taxable revenue, which is about 50 mil, then basically our budget increase is capped at $4 million. Well, you guys are asking for 4.5, so there it goes, right? If it applies to the total budget, which was 100 million, now we've got 8 million of taxing authority, but that is highly not the, I'm sorry? I doubt that too. So if you say, well, how does that compare to what we had in the past? So if we were under the current structure that we know, that we've known over the years, we would be looking at let's say 3%, which is our taxable revenue, so 3% of 50 mil is 1.5 million. Now you can throw in the new growth, let's call that about 1.3, so now we're at 2.8. Oh, by the way, 3.4 million in URD closures, quick math. Now we're up to about 3.4 plus 2.8 is what? Is 6.1, 6.2, okay? And I'm sorry? And foregone. And the foregone, basically, our limit was our foregone balance, which is about $10.5 million. So we could have also tapped into that. So you can see what the hit is. Right off the bat, without even considering foregone, we're looking at a cap of potentially 4 million versus something around 6.2 or 6.3. So if he signs the bill, that's kind of where we're at, unless there's more to come that we're just unaware of.
You know, based on our growth and based on our jail population today, we're looking at needing to build out those 2 wings of the jail. It's coming faster and faster.
I get it. And the situation that you're confronted with, you know, in terms of both retention and recruiting, can be said of other departments as well. If you look at adult misdemeanor probation, where they would get 25 to 30 resumes, they're getting 2 to 3. Same with community development. We have builders, developers screaming at us. David was behind. His turnaround time on permits was something around 12 weeks, and we were backed up with 400 building permits. He's worked it down to about half that, but we still haven't gotten down to the 2 to 3 week turnaround that the builders are expecting. So they're feeling the pinch as well. And again, same situation, cost of housing, where he would get 20 to 25 resumes, he's down to 2 to 3. And his people are degreed, some of them hold advanced degrees in urban and regional planning. So it's not, we can't pick people up from anywhere. But we understand. It's a county-wide issue. It's actually a nationwide issue, but.
I gotta say that our plight is a little bit different because nationally, it's not a good time to be a cop right now. It's tough times. We are being put upon from the East Coast to the West Coast. I gotta say that we are indeed fortunate here in this community that we are supported almost unanimously. We're very, very fortunate. There's a lot of people getting out of this business because of that, which narrows the pool on rival candidates, people we don't have to train. So that, you know, it's a tough time for cops right now. Which kind of, you know, just my 2 cents worth in closing. Our number one priority, and Bob, you know, is wages and benefits, period. You know, we don't have the people, if we can't hire the people because we don't pay them, if we don't keep the people because we don't pay them. I'm not saying that the answer to everything is throw money at it, but we're in a unique position for 2 reasons. Number one, this housing market, but Spokane is number 6 in the nation, so I'm told. So the number 6, number 1, that compounds the problem. But the other thing is when we compare ourselves to other counties, we're unique in the sense that we're backed up to a population of nearly 500,000 people. Mm-hmm. There's a metropolitan area of 700,000-ish people, and the crooks really don't care whether they scam in Idaho or Washington. Matter of fact, it's a little better for them in Washington, but we don't seem to be getting the benefit of that, at least by our numbers. So, yeah, it's a critical time.
Sheriff, do you have any final words?
No, sir, I don't. Thank you. Thank you very much, Board.
Anyone else before we adjourn?
Anybody on the line have public comment?
Public comment, anyone? Hearing none. The time is now 2:25. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.